was where we were taking just possession of crack cocaine and making it a felony 5, and then that person was getting a felony on their record, and because they were addicted, we would see that person back out on the street, because I arrested those people over and over again because it was an addiction, and we weren't selling the actual addiction. We were arresting folks, giving them felonies, and then from then on it was a domino effect. So I intend to keep the nonviolent felony 4s and 5s at the discretion of the assistant prosecutor, and or depending on a case-by-case basis, keeping it in the municipality and having diversion programs where that person can complete the program and the case can be
dismissed. As a judge of the municipal court, every day when I walk out of the courtroom, I saw the problem. Your eyes open to the imbalance in terms of the racial makeup of people coming through the system. It's something that weighs heavily on you. And one of the things that I had committed myself to is to look at all the ways in which to ensure that justice is done in every case, and it's done fairly and equitably. And to that end, what I learned was that measures of success, when I'm county prosecutor, all right, I do not want to be measured by our conviction rate. All right? I want to be measured by the extent to which we reduce crime in our community. That will show that I'm paying enough attention to the quality of cases that are coming through, that justice is being done, and we're doing all those things necessary to prevent cases from coming in.
My name is Ada Avery Hart, and I'm a member of the Carl Stokes Brigade, one of the greatest organizations in Cleveland. We get the job done, and I'm very happy to be a part of them. Some of the people on the panel, I don't know the candidates, all of them, but what I have been reading, I do, like Mr. Chandra, I have been reading about you, and I do like the things that I know of that you've done. My question is, what in your mind are some of the problems endemic with the minority community relative to the grand jury process? There were some things that happened last year that the community was not pleased with, but it went over anyway because we didn't feel like we had anything to say. How is it that you can make the things that's not fair, fair?
Let me give you a few moments on what a grand jury is, because we always hear that term, but we don't want to always know what it is. Under our U.S. Constitution, if you're going to be charged with a felony, which is a very serious crime with potentially hugely serious consequences for you and your life, we have a constitutional right to have that decision about whether you're going to be charged with that felony reviewed by a grand jury. These are our peers, just like a jury, and they listen to the evidence and decide whether you're going to be charged based on a probable cause standard. But here's the problem with grand juries. It's a one-sided presentation. That's the way our system works. Just for the purposes of the charge, the prosecutor gets to make the presentation of whatever evidence they think they have, and there's no opportunity to be heard or to rebut that in the grand jury process. So this creates a danger, because if you don't have prosecutors who are utterly fair-minded, screening the cases before they're presented to the grand jury, if you have prosecutors who just are willing to rubber stamp whatever the police say, if you have prosecutors who aren't willing to say to investigating officers, no, you need more evidence, you need to go back and do some more work before we present this to the grand jury, that's where the system can fail. And what I have experienced as a criminal defense lawyer, and I have to tell you, it disgusts me. I will show you something. One of the reasons I am running is this headline and this article. Presumed guilty. Prosecution without evidence. Bill Mason has repeatedly neglected his #1 duty as prosecutor to seek justice for the people of Cuyahoga County. A 9-month investigation by the plain dealer has revealed Mason's office has pursued criminal charges against hundreds of people over the past decade, despite having little or no evidence against them. As a lawyer, I have experienced this. I have experienced cases where I'm so shocked that the case is being pursued. And what troubles me is when you talk to the prosecutors sometimes and you say, look, you made a mistake here, let me explain why. What do? They say, okay, we'll have them plead guilty to something instead of simply dropping the charge. So that culture has to change. One last point. As law director, I charged cases of unlawful use of deadly force, and they were deep sinks in the grand jury.
Now we're talking about screening cases. That's the city prosecutor's job. When I was the city prosecutor for North Royalton, I kept those cases, first-time offenders and felonies, and had them go through municipal court. The two law directors here, who were also the city prosecutors, did not do that. Do you know that in 2011, 20% of the cases ended up in misdemeanors that went through the county prosecutor's office? Those were cases that the city prosecutors sent to Mr. Mason, and then, because they thought they were felonies, 20% of them were reduced. 20% of them. 20% of them shouldn't get there. So when they talk about screening cases, look at whether they did in fact screen cases or not. And the answer is they didn't. I've screened cases. I've been a prosecutor. I kept it at the municipal court level. Check any lawyer.
Talking to chief, how will you be able to diversify that prosecutor's office?
It actually will be difficult with African American males because there aren't that many in law school. That's just simply the truth. I've gone throughout this community talking about it. We would need to recruit them. As Bill Newsom, the Ward 8, I think he's Ward 8 ward leader, said to me, he says, Jim, you got to start in the high school so that you can get them and train them. And I think that would be an excellent idea. That's what I would like to do.
It is not difficult. It is not difficult. While there's no question that the numbers of African Americans coming through law school right now is smaller than it should be, this is how I did it in Cleveland. I picked up the phone, I identified the promising African American candidates working out in law firms, graduating from school, and I personally went out and took them to lunch and met with them. And I recruited them personally to come join us and to have an opportunity in public service that would then set them up to be leaders in our community. That's how you do it. You have to have a deep personal commitment, and it has to be one of your highest priorities. Talk is cheap.
Hi, everybody. You see who I'm here with right now, Mr. Robert Triazzi right here. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, fine.
Now, can you tell us what your approach would be to office if you were elected?
Well, it's absolutely essential that we do justice in every single case. There's a lot of opportunity for us to do things differently, do things creatively, energetically, to ensure that every case that comes through the criminal justice system is handled by the county and my prosecutors with fairness, with an integrity, with the ability to promote public safety, to hold people accountable, but be fair in the process. Let me ask you a question. With all the
corruption that's taking place in government, have you learned any lessons with Bill Mason's situation and things of that nature? And if so, what was your main thing that you've learned?
What I've learned is that when you're the Cuyahoga County prosecutor, you set the tone for the county. When you set the tone and people know that you're serious, that you know what you're doing, and that corruption won't be tolerated, it will cut down on the possibility of corruption.
Well, let me ask you a question. With your experience as former law director, what's one of the most important lessons you've learned by having that experience?
Well, in my experience as a federal prosecutor and as law director, it is that you have to be humble before the evidence. A prosecutor has to be tough on crime, yes, but a prosecutor has to be humble so that they understand that if they got it wrong, they make a course correction. I did that, for example, in the case of Michael Green, wrongfully convicted, served 13 years for a rape he did not commit. And when I found out, I made sure we reopened 100 similar cases and directed that those be re-examined to make sure that no other Michael Greens had been convicted. That's what a real prosecutor does. They don't just posture about how tough they are, but they make sure that they're being fair and they're humble.
So you heard it from all of the candidates here. You know, this is, we want to give thanks, for this event happening. We want to thank the Imperial Women Coalition, Audacity of Hope, Cleveland African American Museum, and the ClevelandUrbanNews.com for putting this event on. It's real important to have this in the community, and I hope you guys are paying attention to the issues and do the right thing. Player T, that's me, Hollywood in the Hood.